how we can make the hospitality industry better. And that's what your podcast is all about as well. How do we do that? Just improve a little bit every day. So we create a better future. They use their profit to make positive impact on people, community, and planet. If you don't answer the question, what's in it for me, for the customers, I don't think you can actually build a great culture. And then that just becomes a dream.
Culture's everything. Culture's actually absolutely everything to them.
You can't be a force to good if you're not successful in commercial terms. We can't copy what others do. We can't become pizza pilgrims. We actually need to find our own recipe. What's in our control is actually to build better culture, because that will benefit the business in short term and benefit the world, because that just comes out better human beings.
The voices you know, Timothy, Tracy, and Joe on the show. From front of house to chefs on the line, every voice can shape the future each time. Every voice can shape.
Right, everybody, we are celebrating 75 episodes of Talking Hospitality. Woo! We made it. We made it.
And we've done 5 seasons. That is
seasons.
Really impressive. And this is the last one of season 5.
It is indeed.
So we have a very special guest, one of the top podcasters in the UK, Michael Tingsager. Very interesting to hear what he has to say. So please sit back and listen, and we'll catch up with you at the end. Thank you so much for coming on today, Michael. It's really good to have you back, and I appreciate you're busy, so thank you.
You're welcome. I'd love to come back and talk about how we can make the hospitality industry better. And that's what your podcast is all about as well. How do we do that? Just improve a little bit every day. So we create a better future. Actually, interesting. I was having a really interesting conversation this morning about actually how we prepare the future generations to join hospitality. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, we were just doing that, actually. I was literally just doing that
it's been a
with
common
Westminster
thread throughout the
College.
day, actually. Yeah.
So actually, if you haven't listened to it, do listen to our episode with Kieran Bailey, because he gives you a very nice shout out in how you helped him when he was going through a bit of a tough time, and you made him kind of realise what his purpose was. So your conversation, he talks about that. So because he gives you a really nice shout out, and deserved, clearly.
Thank you, Kieran. If you listen to this, I will reach out to you independently.
So what the hell did you say about me? You think I've got time to listen to their podcast? I've got my own podcast to listen to. Right, okay, right. Back to business. Okay, so we welcome back Michael Tingsager, founder and CEO of Hospitality Mavericks. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you
You're
doing?
almost the host now, Michael.
How are you doing is such a big philosophical question.
How are you doing today? How are you today?
That's
right
the
at this moment.
Yeah, that's actually how you. And actually, there was somebody that told me some time ago. Actually, how are you doing? Don't ask that. How are you doing today? Exactly as you just said, Tim. That's how you should be asking the question, because or else you just get the standard question that, yeah, I'm all right, it's okay. But I'm actually quite good today. The sun is shining, and I had some great conversations already, moving the world forward 1%, working on the things that I really care about. So I did an interview this morning. It was already mentioned to you. So today is a great day.
We're here because in our 50th episode, you touched on the 7 tenets of Hospitality Mavericks. And we thought there's a lot more to it than that. You can't do that when you've got like 8 other people on the episode. So I thought now would be quite a good opportunity for you to come and talk to us about that, because you've got quite an interesting take on hospitality and how it can improve, and you're very invested in its sort of growth. So you're quite interested, my understanding is you're very interested in building the businesses from the inside out.
Yeah.
And so how do you, and also you think businesses can be a force for good, which you don't hear very often, because people often look at businesses quite cynically outside of them, or sometimes even when they're in them. But you're going, no, but businesses can be a force for good. So what does that mean? And kind of what has inspired you to take that approach?
It's quite interesting, because I didn't, of course, start it out with way back in my younger years when I was a leader myself and said, okay, I'm going to be all about business as a force for good. And when my journey was that I found out at some point very quickly on, there's some managers that runs businesses better than others. And actually, funny enough, those managers, they take care of their people. And they're very good at it, and they create great employee experiences. And I found out I'm actually going to stick to those because I think I'm probably going to be a better manager over time. And it was all true. They were the one that got promoted, moved on into the system. And on that journey, I also joined university. And when I was in my one of my different, you have to choose some subjects. At some point, I choose leadership and strategy, and then I had to write assignments to finalize semesters on that. And there was a professor, Kai Wolfman, a very Danish name, and he was really into how you build better organizations. So organizations that was good for humanity, but also were profitable and actually have a very long view of surviving. The legacy was not just we're going to build great business and sell it in 5 years, we're going to sustain over decades. And he gave me this book called Good to Great, and that was actually where it all started. And then I started reading into these businesses, and one of the businesses in there is Southwest Airlines. As many people know, they're very known for a different take on how to run a business, even a low-cost airline, where you could actually go and have a hospitality experience, and you actually never knew what kind of experience. And I know it's a different story today, but interesting enough, that was a business that over decades really performed on performance, employee experience, and customer experience. And I became quite obsessed about that. And that was actually how Hospitality Maverick came to life. It started with some blogs where we were finding these businesses that was not just delivering great business results, they're also really good at their people, their customers, and thereby also very profitable, because you can't be a force to good if you're not successful in commercial terms, in a way. So what it's all about is that how can you actually become a business leader that know how to build businesses that do more than just make profit. They use their profit to make positive impact on people, community, and planet. And that's principle the foundation pillar of the Hospitality Maverick platform, which is primarily the podcast, some white papers, and now we are working on one of the white papers, and some blogs have led to we are now working on this project of writing this. It's probably going to be a book, as I see it right now, with the 7 tenets. And these 7 tenets are what these Maverick leaders know and do to build these businesses that can both deliver profit but also impact in that kind of way.
Michael, could you walk us through those tenets for those that weren't in the podcast like me?
Yeah, and actually, that was probably why I was coming back as well. So there's 6 tenets, and we could go into the details of some of them. I think we will have a very long conversation if I was narrating all of them. But the first one is clarity of purpose and direction. It is very simple. The most successful businesses have extreme clarity about their purpose and where they're going, and thereby also really good at positioning yourself with strategy. Give you an example from the UK, Dishoom is a very great example of that. They're very clear about what their purpose is and the direction they go in. And actually, Dishoom is also a great example of how they're growing. They are what we call tenet number 2, graceful growth. They don't have extreme growth plan. I think actually recently I saw an article from the founder saying that it's not about speed, it's about building a better restaurant every time we open. So next year, I think they had 1 in the pipeline instead of 10. Then you have the pursuit of mastery, the impossible, to become the best of everything in the world. It's impossible. It's like such an unrealistic tenet to set for yourself. But there's a business really good example of this is Neal's Yard Dairy in London. They are obsessive about making the cheese industry better in the UK. And you can only do that by pursuing the mastery of running these delicious cheese businesses and doing it to a level and understanding of cheese that you can't find anywhere else. And you see that also in a guest I had on, so very early on, I think it was episode number 35, Nisha Katona from Mowgli's, where she talks about that pursuit of mastery of the Indian cooking to the masses through her chain. Then there is a tenet number 4, which is radical transparency. The most radical transparency I've seen is actually a chocolate manufacturer / hospitality business called Eskimoshi Chocolate, where you actually can go on the website and see all the information about where they're getting their chocolate from, all the way out to the farm and how much the farmer has been paid. And that's continuously updated. That's quite interesting. We know a bit about chocolate and slavery and so on. Then there's tenet number 5, that's called a stake in the outcome. That doesn't mean that per se it's monetary or in shares and options. Some have that, but it's actually that you actually have the ability to actually become a better business person who's working in this organization. So actually you involve your employees in the P&L, said in a very simple way. So many of these companies, there's one in the US called Singerman's. When people are listening to the show know I'm a very big fan of Singerman and the work they do. And Ari, the founder, one of the founders, has been on the show for 4 times, I think he's been on. And he talks about how do you actually involve people in developing in your business, and actually how do you actually give them insights into the P&L, and how do you get thereby, how do they then become responsible or take a stake in the outcome, the results you create in the end. And then they start to understand the more profit we do, the more good we can do. And then it becomes like this machine of, we make profit to make more good in a way, and not just for the sake of profit. Then there is a tenet number 7, which is quite interesting in hospitality, where if I might be wrong, but I still think there's quite a top-down approach and centralization about how we do things here. Where you see these kind of businesses that really deliver on freedom to operate, and we have Paddy and Scott's in north from London, where we had John Reed and his organization. They're very focusing on how do we take decision power and put it out there where it really gives value out by the customer. So how do we give them freedom to operate? That means how do we actually make our frontline employees to take the most decisions so they have the authority to take that? Not a written down manual, but how do we create frameworks for that? And I did an episode with him as well, and I will share that for the show notes. And he talks a lot about that in that conversation. And then as we were working through, we thought it was 6 tenets, and then we were working through, we did a white paper called the 6 tenets of agile hospitality in the pandemic. We afterward reflected, and I did some more interviews, and I started to see there was a pattern about, it doesn't sound very sexy, but it's actually about stewarding the ecosystem. It's about governance, and really good businesses and that's able to both make profit and do good has a really strong governance system. And that's about how do we make decisions here. So it becomes very clear about how do we make decisions here and how do we actually leave the business for the future. And again, a conversation that comes to mind I had recently is Singerman's, where actually they are transferring the business from being owned by the 2 founders to actually become the employee-owned business. And one of their biggest fears is to be bought by Amazon. So therefore, they've written in their constitution now, as it's called, we cannot be sold to Amazon. It's not possible. It's not legally possible to sell to Amazon, no matter what, if they want to buy the business, because they have a huge e-commerce business where they sell a lot of specialty food out. So it's again, how do we actually set up this business, and what do we actually want to achieve with it? And how do we actually govern that over time? So that was probably the fastest way I could take you through the 7 tenets. And then I'm more than happy to go into individual tenets, but that's like what the whole premise is about. And this means that these companies, they're not just living radical to all of these. I think that's very important to say. They choose their areas to really dive deep in. But there's one thing they all do, and that's like the baseline for actually being a Maverick business, is they have absolutely clarity of purpose and direction where I started out. Because if you don't have that, you can't do all the other things. So this is principle their cultural ingredients in kind of way that makes them special and stand out, both attractive for customers and employees to join.
I think there's a lot of validity on what's been said. Like there's a number of things, like even in organizations where I've worked, for example, governance it seems to be increasingly a thing right now in terms of corporates are now considering governance as part of their sort of principles and pillars, because they're sort of realizing how we lead is actually essential for the success of what we're rolling out. And I think the smarter businesses are thinking, actually, in the past, particularly corporates, has always been, let's tick that box, let's say we've done that. And now they're thinking, well, it's actually, how are we rolling this out? Because people are getting smarter, employees are getting smarter. They're looking at it and going, well, you don't mean that. And they can start looking through it. And then you see companies like, I've talked about this as an example in, I think it was season 3. I didn't name the company. I'm prepared to do it now because it's a few years that moved on. And it was Dishoom. And Dishoom, because they've got such a great purpose, when they were opening up their restaurant in Brighton, what they did was, the person who was doing the recruitment for it, she had a spreadsheet of where everybody that was applying for their restaurant, where they worked. She also looked up where they worked and what the size of the company that they work in. This is a lot of work. And the reason why she did it is she didn't want to take too many people from any particular business because they weren't coming in to undermine the community. They were coming to work with the community. So like, we're here, we're competition, but we're not here to destroy. We're here to be part of the community, because Brighton has a very big community anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, even now I get like goose pimples because the effort, the thoughtfulness of that as your project, to say, you've only got 4 people, I'm going to take 1 from you maximum because that's natural and things to do. But 3 people applied, I'm not doing that because that's not what I'm here, because that business will go under. That's incredible foresight.
Yeah.
But also, without the purpose of what Dishoom's all about, they would never have even considered it.
And it's also, that's like a short-term pain, but it's a long-term gain, you know. And that's what we were saying, one of the first or the second ones. It's like, it's that long-term, that zoomed out. It would have helped. It would have helped long-term, right?
Yeah.
You don't want those people going around bad-mouthing all these new guys,
And I think so many organisations, businesses are focused so much on strategy and almost hidden behind strategy that they've forgotten that culture is such a key aspect of a working environment. And I think with the generation that's coming into play and is already in play, the younger guys and girls, culture's everything. Culture's actually absolutely everything to them. So I don't know what you've seen, Michael, in regards to like particular traits for high-performing hospitality teams when it comes to culture and what they're doing to embed that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to dovetail what you talked about with Dishoom again, because what you saw there was that it's not just the purpose, but also you have made that's a conscious decision on some kind of leadership level about how we do things and how we make decisions again. And I think that's really interesting. And I think they are a very good example of, I'm sure that's written down somewhere. It's documented sometime when we do an opening. This is how we make these decisions. And then coming back to the culture and the strategy, because that's really interesting, because I interviewed a guy called Alex Smith, the no bullshit strategy guy, and he's really on that strategy is everything, you know, because he's very commercial. And he's actually right in some way, because if you're not delivering something your customer that they want, so what's in it for me, there's no business. So first, yes, the positioning and the value you add to the market and the industry have to be very clear. But how to bring that to life, I totally agree with you, Tracy. It's the culture. That's really what's, gonna make sure that actually you're still here in some years' time. That's what builds the legacy. That's what builds the operation, the customer experience. And I wouldn't say there's some like specific trends, but I think people are starting now. What I can hear is because they're looking at Dishoom, they're looking at Pizza Pilgrims. Let's use some UK examples. Yeah. And they can see they're very strong commercially from a strategy point of view. They have cracked what's in it for me, for the customers. People are coming to them because they are delivering on that. And I think other operators have found out the reason why they're delivering on that is because of this culture thing. It is a unique, if you go and meet Pizza Pilgrims employees, which I've been lucky enough to spend a day with some of them, and you find out, wow, this is not just talk. This is a special place. There's a feeling. And you get the same kind of feel first time I met Nisha at Mowgli's, to mention that, I interviewed in one of her Liverpool restaurants. I think it was restaurant number 2, she opened. And you could feel when she came in, and and the whole culture around her and the team, it was something special. So this is back in 2019, 18. I don't know, I couldn't say it's the same today, but I guess it is, because she's still around and she's still creating that. So I think what is starting to come aware is that actually we need to spend time on this. This is difficult, it's complex. We need to create our own algorithm. We can't copy what others do. We can't become pizza pilgrims. We actually need to find our own recipe. And I think I'm seeing that that is becoming a thing. And people are talking, definitely leaders are talking about how do we create that? Because that's the only way we can prepare ourselves for the future. And I had this podcast conversation this morning, which really about talent. And there was a bit of a fear here that actually we might, as hospitality industry, are missing out on, getting the talent we need for the future, which is not great. So I think there is an element of actually what I see is that actually people are trying to figure out how do we then create our own algorithm and how do we become, what I call more maverick or dare to be different in our approach to do things. And I think that's really interesting because then actually I think we're going to start creating some really, really interesting businesses. And I think hospitality has a great opportunity for this because there's already this, it's about being human, it's about hospitality, the art of hospitality. So I actually think there's huge potential in creating great culture, especially also with the support of the tech that is coming now.
So do you think the 7 tenets that you picked up, these are for businesses really, not your traditional businesses that, we corporate, therefore we are kind of thing. These are more for those businesses that we want to be different. We want to do something different. We might have an idea. If we look at these tenets, it will give me some kind of guideline on how to make that happen in an effective business way. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think what is really important here, I think I said it before as well, you still have to have something the market wants. That's the starting point. Because if you don't have made something, where a customer says, what's in it for me? And they are willing to give you the money, it's going to be very hard to build a culture on just purpose, for example. I actually don't believe you can build a business on just purpose. So I think it's really important that you actually, first of all, you need to have the strategy / commercial angle in place. And then, of course, the 7 tenets then gives you a framework for how can you then build a culture below that. And then it actually comes to the first tenet. Do people in the organization actually understand where we're heading? So if we take Dishoom or Pizza Pilgrim again, I think most people in those organizations understand what it's all about and what the purpose is and the direction they're going in. It doesn't mean they know the business strategy to the core, but they definitely have a feel and it's like something that's talked about in some kind of way.
So you talked about purpose. I totally agree. I think the purpose of the business is essential for sure for us to know why we're working there. Some people might be attracted by brands, initial thing, but once you get there, you need to know why. For longevity, you kind of need to know why am I doing this. So do you think the future is with businesses that are purpose driven as opposed to
driven?
Not purpose driven?
Yeah, that's
my question. Yeah.
I think it's a binary. It's almost like, yes, it is, but also if it's not enough to be purpose-driven.
Correct.
I think and I think it's great that you're purpose-driven. I think Alex talks about it again. But again, if you don't answer the question, what's in it for me, for the customers, I don't think you can actually build a great culture. And then that just becomes a dream. But I think it's important in the world we live in to serve more than yourself. And that's maybe my ethics. But I also believe that the only solution to the problems we're in as a world is something that business can be part of solving. It definitely play a very big role in it, together with governments and so on. Because, I think business has a strong muscle. And I think if we think, okay, what is the purpose of hospitality then, we can take our young people. We talked a bit about that. We have a huge opportunity to give young people some great skills. We've already done that, but we can do it even better. And if we then put them into great cultures as well, what kind of human beings are not coming out on the other side that can solve all these challenges? I know I'm becoming a bit philosophic now, like climate change and, unfairness and what else we have here in the world that needs to be solved. And we can start talking about that. But that's not really the case. I think actually what's in our control is actually to build better culture, because that will benefit the business in short term and benefit the world, because that just comes out better human beings out of these organizations.
So if I've got business, people are buying from me. So I'm a bit like, it doesn't need to be pizza, but a bit like Pizza Pilgrims, for example. I've got that kind of quirkiness to me. When is the point that I should be reaching out to somebody like you and saying, right, actually, we want to take it next level, but we don't know how to do it?
I think it's a really good question, because we've also been talking about that. I actually think you need to get started on the journey. And I think a startup automatically in the early days gets some kind of culture because the founders are very close to everything. And I don't think it's that thing when you start scaling the story, scaling the business, where you actually start to get, I think every business should have this, but I think the reality is that you need to get to some point where you as a founder can't touch everyone every day.
Yeah.
Because that's really where your culture becomes essential. And I think there's some people who says it's past 12 people. I don't know if there's a number, but there's a point where you are not in touch with everyone every day. And I think Danny Meyer talks about that as well. That's where culture becomes essential, because this is how we do things around here. So I think it's about finding out that energy of where you get to that point. And so it's not about the number of restaurants. I think it's about something about number of people. I don't think it's 12 in hospitality, but I think definitely 50. I think you're starting to get to a point where these things becomes important, because if it's not written down, how are we actually doing things around here? What are you going to do if somebody suddenly is not there? And then you're losing that magic power, because it's actually not something new you're doing. You're just, what you see these maverick businesses are doing when they are, for example, some of them create what I would call a culture book, which is in principle behaviors and beliefs, which equals how we do things around here, your values. They do it on their history and how they've done things here. And the values that come up are not new. It's not like, now we're going to do a workshop on something new. Oh, that's surprising we behave like this here. They're just manifested in a 3-day format in a way. But I think what's really key when even when you're clear about what it is, your culture is, and you've written it down, is that then you set the culture, but then you have to live it, then you have to train it, then it becomes part of your training system, you need to reward with it, and you need to evolve it. Because I think what happens many times is also cultures needs to evolve with time as the business grow, or the world changes, or the people that works in it changes. And I think the evolved bits sometimes are missed out, because but this is how we do things around here. We've done that for 100 years. But that might needs to evolve a bit like the iPhone evolves over time.
This is a huge subject. Not anything we can cover in a Talking Hospitality episode.
Oh, we can have a go.
I think we
have a go, but we've got like 3 minutes.
We would definitely
So where can people go to find out more about this? Because this is obviously quite an interesting it's a very interesting topic. Where can people go and go, right, I want to read up more, listen to more, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, they listen to this podcast. They can then go to the Hospitality Mavericks podcast. There is under episodes, there is actually living the 6 tenets of agile hospitality. I think there's about 40 episodes where some of these ideas are talked about in there. Then there's also, you can sign up for our newsletter, and you will get the white papers that's done on this as well. If you want to know more, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I write a lot about cultures and thoughts about these things. So I think that would be the best places to go. And of course, you can also buy the 4 books from Ari Weinsweig, that's the founder of Singerman, to start reading his 4 books, and then you will learn a lot about it. But but if you don't prefer to read the books, you can also just tune into the interviews I've done with him, and you will get a very good idea about their thinking about building culture.
Lovely. So we will put links down, obviously, in the podcast description, but also if you go to talkinghospitality.com, if you go to Michael's guest profile, you can get the information there and reach out to him direct. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
really
Michael.
Interesting.
Thanks,
and just
Michael.
not enough time.
Oh, no, it never is.
So,
Never.
All
Thank you
all
very
good
much.
things has an end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you for coming
You
on.
too.
Till next time, Michael. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, so that is the end of the episode and the season. How are you
Yeah.
guys feeling?
Do you know what? It was a lot, but it was fun. It was different. We had some great guests on, and I think we gave something different to our listeners than we have in other seasons. Definitely. Yeah.
It's been a long season, actually.
It has
It's
been
the
a long
longest
season.
season we've ever done.
Yeah.
Thank you both to you guys for
Thank you.
co-hosting and hosting and taking the reins when needed,
Yeah.
adding your thoughts and expertise. It's been great. Looking forward to seeing you again in season 6.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Contract dependent.
Yeah, for Tim.
For me. And it's been honestly, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for listening. If you're watching, please thank you again for watching and following us on YouTube. It's really appreciated. If you've got thoughts and comments on what you'd like to see for our next season, please drop us a line at heytalkinghospitality.com. There'll be links in the show notes as well. Or join us. We've got blogs.
We've got blogs, we've got training, there's lots of education. You can look at our past seasons as well. But we really do want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to know, because we can scour the world and find the right person to bring that information to you. So please engage with us and let us know.
Absolutely. And we're going to be starting a newsletter too, which is going to let you know all about the insights and all the discoveries that we've come across in the episodes. So get involved, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
And you can find out more at talkinghospitality.com. In the meantime, we're going to take a short break, much deserved.
Yes.
And thank you all again for listening and watching and subscribing, and those that have made comments, your comments. We do appreciate it. It helps us carry on doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to joining you again in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Talking hospitality, the voices you know.